Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. Before I do so, I just want to read something for you from Isaiah 30:21. It says, "Your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" This is the way our God talks to us. And if we listen to his voice, we'll be all right. All tribute to Jesus Christ. Lord, I pray that we will walk in the way that you direct us. Amen. So let's just get into this real quick. So we realized something, that in the past, generally speaking, per division, there was really just one champion. Generally speaking, it wasn't so all the time, but that's how it was. And I'm giving you some evidence here in terms of the list of welterweight champions. When we look, February 17, 1891 to February 24th of 1897, which is 6 long years, a guy called Tommy Ryan, he was the welterweight champion of the world. Mysterious Billy Smith was the welterweight champion of the world from 1898 to 1900. Okay, which is 2 years. So basically, that's not so anymore today. Today we have multiple world champions. But even though we have multiple world champions, there's one world champion who's either called the lineal world champion, who's at the top of the division, or he's the person who's seen as the man of the division. What we're going to do is we're going to use the ring, and for the modern day world champions, we're going to look at some world champions, and we're going to see if they were at the top of their division. So when we talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr., he apparently won against 22 current and future and also past world champions, right? And how many of those world champions were actually number one? They were at the top of their division, okay? And they're the real world champion, let's put it that way. So let's just see. So we have Gennaro Hernandez here. Now, Gennaro Hernandez was world champion in a certain period of time. He was world champion from 1991 to 1995, and then he was world champion from 1997 to 1998. Okay? So he was world champion for 5 years, basically. Now, here's the question. Was he number one? Was he the number one champion in the world? And we can just look at any duration within his reign. I was going to go somewhere around here. So I'm going to look at world champions in 1997, and let's see what Gennaro Hernandez was ranked in 1997. So we go to the year 1997 here, and we pull him up. Look at super featherweight, and all the junior lightweights. You can see Gennaro Hernandez was the number one junior lightweight or super featherweight in the world. So therefore, Gennaro Hernandez, if you were to think of him in terms of who would be the man of the division, it was him. Now this is very important. He's the real champion of the division, okay? While he may not be undisputed, he is the real champion of the division, right? You guys got that? Let's look at another one. So Gregorio Vargas, I can tell you right now, if you go and check the ring, he was never a number one anything. Okay, Gregorio Vargas was a super featherweight champion. Diego Corrales, on the other hand, he actually was a number one super featherweight in the world. So he was also a man of the division, super featherweight, when Floyd Mayweather actually faced him as well. Carlos Hernandez was never number one. Jesus Chavez was the number 2 super featherweight in the world at a certain period in time. Jose Luis Castillo, he was the number 1 lightweight in the world multiple times, I think twice. Okay, so you have him. Then you have DeMarcus Corley. DeMarcus Corley was never number 1 at anything. Arturo Gatti was the number 2 super lightweight in the world. That's as close as he got to anything. Sean B. Mitchell, on the other hand, Sean B. Mitchell, I want to pull him up so you guys can have a look at him. And Sean B. Mitchell, he was world champion from 1998 to 2001. He was a light welterweight world champion. So we can go anywhere within that vicinity of time. We're going to look somewhere in the year 2000 and see where he was ranked, right? So in the year 2000, which should be somewhere here, let's see what Sean B. Mitchell was ranked. And remember, he is junior welterweight. It'll be here. So you can see Costa Zoo was the number 1 junior welterweight in the world. Sean B. Mitchell was number 3. Let's go a little bit further back into time here and see what happens. So Let's go 1999. And Sean B. Mitchell was the number one welterweight in the world at the end of the year 1999. So he also was a number one champion. He was like the champion of the division at a certain point in time. So Sean B. Mitchell, Zab Judah, we know he was the lineal champion, and he wasn't just the lineal champion, he was also the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, so he was a number one champion. So was Carlos Baldomir, who beat Zab Judah. He became the number one or the lineal champion. Oscar De La Hoya was lineal champion multiple times in his career, so he also was a number one champion. Ricky Hatton was the number one super lightweight in the world. Juan Manuel Marquez was the number one lightweight in the world. Shane Mosley was the number one welterweight and super welterweight in the world. Victor Ortiz was the number 3 welterweight in the world. Miguel Cotto was the number 1 super welterweight in the world. Robert Guerrero was never number 1. I think he was number 2, if I'm not mistaken, number 2 featherweight in the world at a certain period of time. Saul Canelo Alvarez was the number 1 super welterweight in the world, and he's currently the lineal middleweight champion. Okay, even though that doesn't matter as much because I think GGG is more of a champion than he is. But if he beats GGG, if Danny Jacobs doesn't beat GGG and Saul Canelo Alvarez beats him, he'd become the number 1 middleweight in the world. Okay, Marcos Maidana was never number 1 at anything. Manny Pacquiao was the number 1 welterweight in the world at a certain period of time, the number 1 lightweight in the world, the number 1 super featherweight in the world, the number 1 featherweight in the world. So he's been the number 1 flyweight in the world. So he's been number 1 a number of times as well. And then Andre Roberto, who was the number 3 welterweight in the world. So when we talk about number 1 in their respective divisions, we're talking names such as Manny Pacquiao, which is 1, Saul Canelo Alvarez is 2, Miguel Cotto, which is 3, Shane Mosley, which is 4, Juan Manuel Marquez is 5, Ricky Hatton is 6, there's Oscar De La Hoya 7, Carlos Baldomir is 8, Zab Judah is 9, Sean B. Mitchell is 10, Jose Luis Castillo is 11, Diego Corrales is 12, and Gennaro Hernandez is 13. So Floyd Mayweather actually faced 13 world champions who were actually the real world champions of their respective divisions. 13 of them. Alright? Now, why am I doing this listing? Well, I want to actually compare Floyd Mayweather's wins over those world champions with Sugar Ray Robinson's, and I'll do that in another video. Till then, you guys have a great one.